So it's early January 2010. It's kind of cold here in southern New England, about 15, 16 degrees. It's snowing, and it's time to rack some cider. However, I think it's just a little bit too cold to be racking cider on the deck today. So today's work is going to be in the basement where it's only slightly warmer. Alright, let's get started. I'll be racking several ciders over the next couple of days, and we'll put them into up to a few videos depending on how much time it takes me to yammer on about them. Today we're doing the ciders that I purchased from Pine Hill during Cider Days, first weekend in November every year. This is going to be the first racking for this cider, and here's what I have. I have the cider. I've got 3.5 pounds of brown sugar. I have a ½ pound of raisins, unsulfited raisins. I have an empty 5-gallon bucket. I have a freshly sanitized 5-gallon carboy. Of course, I have my sanitizing solution. And as a new experiment this year, you're not going to be able to see this, but in this bucket I have 1 liter of Kentucky bourbon, into which I have added about 7.5 ounces of oak chips and left them overnight to sanitize. What I'm going for is something closer to a New England barrel style cider with this than I have tried in the past, in that I am actually trying to get the oak and the bourbon out of the final flavor. So here we go. Okay, a big lesson learned this year is that if you're going to be adding brown sugar to your cider, add it while the cider is still in buckets, because brown sugar does not fit well into the little necks of these carboys. So as a result of my not doing that, I actually have to rack this cider twice. I have to rack it once into a bucket so I can get the brown sugar into it, and then rack it from the bucket back into a carboy so that I can get the raisins and the bourbon and oak chips, and then of course store it in the carboy over winter. Freshly sanitized 5-gallon bucket. 3.5 pounds of brown sugar. With the siphon going, being careful to set it up so that it doesn't splash and aerate very much, because there's going to be some aerating anyways since I'm racking twice. I want to be as careful as I can. We'll leave that alone while we get the raisins and the oak chips into the new carboy. Getting the raisins into the carboy is remarkably non-technical. All I'm going to do is take off my little piece of tin foil that I was covering the mouth with. Just kind of work them in. Probably spill a few in the process, no big deal. Okay, the cider's all racked into the bucket. Next we're going to get the bourbon and oak chips into the new carboy. Basically the same technique as the raisins, but I expect it to be a little messier. Okay, the oak chips are in. That was a bit of a pain, but I'm not so sure that I really see a way around that except to do my fermenting in buckets, which it just so happens that I have a lot of carboys, so I'm going to deal with the fact that in some ways carboys are a little bit more of a pain to work with than buckets, but in other ways they're better for long-term aging. So that's just the choice that you make. So the cider, I'm going to have to stir it up just a little bit. I want to be kind of careful. My goal is not to aerate it too much, but yet still get the sugar into solution. This will probably take a little while, so just go kind of slow. Alright, sanitized racking cane, carboy's back on the floor. Let's do the final racking. The siphon is going. And what I'm going to do is, because there's so much sugar in here and not all of it really has gone into solution, I'm just going to kind of keep it agitated, keep the sugar from settling to the bottom so that hopefully the racking cane will pick it up, get it all in there. If I had my choice, I would absolutely prefer not to have to rack a single cider twice like this. But say a bad decision on my part put me in this position, so here we go. I should probably mention that I actually have to do this twice tonight because I have 2 of those carboys of the Pine Hill cider. I'll not be filming the second one. So I'm not too worried about having the cider temporarily in an open bucket. The base cider that I had used for this had already fermented right down to 0. It had already completed its primary fermentation. There should be plenty of alcohol and plenty of good quality yeast in here to overcome the stray little bit of something that might get into the bucket while I'm doing this kind of racking. It's important for me to say again that I would not do it this way if I had a choice and if I had thought a little bit more intelligently when I first did the ciders this year. I would absolutely have put the any of the granulated sugars, I absolutely would have put them into the initial buckets, let them dissolve into that before racking for the first time into the carboys. All done with these. I am certain that not all of the brown sugar has gone into solution. I'm sure that some of it is settling right now as we speak, so it's my intention for the next couple of days to come down here and give these a little bit of a stir, get whatever has settled down back up into solution. I also took the liberty of putting a teaspoon of yeast nutrient into each of these because I brought the gravity up pretty measurably by adding all that sugar, and so I thought that a little bit of extra yeast nutrient might help the yeast that's in there do its job. While I was racking the second carboy, I took the liberty of grabbing a sample out. I haven't tried it yet. This is what was in the carboys before I did the racking. So this is the original cider. This is what I bought straight out of Pine Hill at Cider Day, and this is what it tastes like completely fermented out. So let's see. Smells nice. Little bit of apple smell left in there, not too strong. Taste is a little tart. It's actually kind of a little bit of a funky taste in there, maybe a little sulfury. That's not too much of a surprise. This is still a young cider, just like I have said with other videos. When these ciders are young, they're still kind of fighting out what they're going to taste like eventually. And of course, with most of my ciders, I always add stuff, so I actually don't really get a lot of final cider product that is just the apples that I started with. That's just personal choice on my part. So this doesn't taste anything like what the final product is going to taste like, but it was kind of nice to get a sense for what just the straight apples do ferment into. So that's it for these. We'll continue racking over the next couple of days and try and get those filmed. Hopefully the process will go smooth. So thanks for watching.